Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Ron, and the Angelbeat team for having me on today. I think I'm going to follow Mickey's suit and just turn my camera off in a moment here just so I can focus. But as you guys can see on the screen here, we're going to talk about pre-deployment container security. That's the main focus here. So zeroing in on one particular area of the container development pipeline. So let me just go ahead and drop this, and we will get the ball rolling. Just make sure I can go back and forth here. Awesome. So before we get into things, we're just going to focus our attention on these numbers for a moment and look at what they mean. And this is all as of last year. So I would expect these numbers to either have stayed the same or actually increase. But as of 2020, upwards of 84% of organizations were running containers in production. And that's pretty great. This is really relevant to our conversation today. On top of that, more than 78% of organizations running containers are using Kubernetes for their container orchestration. And lastly, 94% of Kubernetes users had a security incident in the last 12 months. That last one's pretty shaking and definitely suggests to us that there is a need to talk about security when it comes to containers, and that's what I'm here to do today. So from a pre-deployment point of view, how can we address this need that we've just highlighted here? And what's the benefit of addressing it? Where exactly can we benefit from it? So we can address this need by putting security into the hands of the developers. We're going to take security, move it all the way left into the development pipeline. And that's been a very heavy, strong topic of conversation for the past couple of years. But sincerely, we're going to move it left and put security in the hands of developers and allow them to implement security practices as early as possible in the development pipeline. And the benefit is pretty clear. Subsequently, we're going to reduce risk at deployment time. Before I get into the details, though, I didn't really say anything about myself or anything about Trend, so let me do that. Hi, my name is Michael Gibbons. I'm a solutions architect at Trendmicro based here in Dallas. If you saw the Penguins hat on my head, I'm actually originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So northeastern guy living in central southwestern down here in Dallas. I work specifically on our Cloud One team and help deliver our Cloud One security solutions and strategies to those customers of Trend focusing on growing in AWS cloud. So on my end of things, strong AWS focus, strong cloud focus. But as we can see, if we're looking at this Cloud One graph here, there's a number of different areas of cloud security that we can cover. But today what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss three things, and it's all around container security, right? Number one is where exactly can we implement container security pre-deployment? Second is what exactly is Trendmicro doing to support those that are implementing container security pre-deployment? And then lastly, I'll just cover a real life scenario in which our strategy and solutions have worked to support a big name financial services client, specifically working with containers and going pre-deployment. So before diving into the discussion, I mentioned that I am a part of the Cloud One team. Cloud One is a security platform of solutions designed to help organizations fit security into their cloud goals, right? Three common scenarios in which we find ourselves assisting organizations are one, people just taking cloud migration, right? They're moving from on-premise to the cloud. They are looking for a little bit of security advice or want to fit security into that process there. We fit in there. So we have people, just like Mickey was talking about, people that are, born in the cloud native, doing almost everything serverless, and they're building cloud native applications. Come to ask and see where we can fit security into the cloud native side of things. And then lastly, we have people that are just generally working to achieve cloud operational excellence. They've made their way into the cloud. They might be hybrid cloud, and they just want to be able to balance best practices with their business goals. And sometimes it's a combination of the three as well, or two or more rather. What you'll see on this little cloud here, like I said, this platform does offer multiple different security solutions for multiple different vectors of cloud security. And one of them is containers. So that will set the context from where we're coming from as Trend with insight on containers. So, right, let's just get right into it. So the topic of discussion is container security pre-deployment. And what are some of the risks that can arise in the pre-deployment end of the container development pipeline, right? So let me just get this animated out here? Well, number one is open source code, or at least leveraging open source code. I'm not going to come out and say that using open source code by default is vulnerable and risky to use. But since this code is available to all, it's out there, you can find it on somebody else's repository, the potential for misuse is always going to be there. So that's something that we need to keep our eyes on. The second thing is vulnerabilities in your own code, right? Sometimes developers make mistakes, that's okay. It can be checked for, it can be remediated, and we can move forward with that. And then lastly, vulnerabilities in the container images themselves. Maybe it's the way that we've configured the container, it opens it up to particular things that we don't want to open it up to. That can also be checked for, and that can be taken care of as well. When we're looking at this end of the pipeline, we got to think who traditionally is the person responsible for packaging all this together, and how are we going to put security into their hands. That person is the developer, right? So let's take a second and set some context by looking at the traditional archetype of the developer, right? Typically, this is the person responsible for tooling on that end of the pipeline. They come to the table, or at least the management comes to the table and says, all right, here's what we're going to use in order to achieve our development goals. Security has classically, not always, but traditionally been a barrier to success. And this is the person on that side of the pipeline that longs for speed and innovation. And you can even take in a step back and say, security has classically been a barrier to success because they long for speed and innovation. Developers, they want to write code, they want to write solid code, test it, make sure it works, and then get it out into deployment. Security is going to come in sometimes and say, hey, this doesn't meet the standard we're looking for. Can you go back and make a change? Or, hey, we've just found something in our live production environment that needs to be remediated. We might have to face a little bit of downtime in order for you to go back and make those changes and go live with security in mind. So where can we give the developer those particular security practices to fit in their workflow to kind of shift over to security before the fact instead of security after the fact, right? And two core checkpoints that we find are build time and pushing to the registry or while into the registry waiting to be deployed. Now, scanning at build time, what we're able to do is ensure the very earliest level of detection and make sure that anything that has been packaged together in the container image make sure there's nothing vulnerable there. This is going to offer the lowest operational and perhaps financial cost of remediation, right? Nothing's gone live yet. We probably haven't even, if we're building it, we've tested it, but we probably haven't pushed it away to somewhere else where somebody has it in their hands. So we can make the changes as early as possible and move forward with security in mind. The second one is scanning in registry or upon pushing to the registry. This is going to enforce the integrity of your images, right? Make sure nothing has been tampered with pre-deployment. And while the image sits in the registry, we can constantly or we suggest that people scan the registry to make sure there hasn't been any particular third-party access or unintentional access by somebody who does not need to access this material. Now, what exactly is Trendmicro doing to, support this model, to support this shift, or to inject security into these two particular areas that we found that are a good place to do so? Well, as mentioned earlier, a part of the Cloud One platform is a piece that is dedicated to securing containers. That is called Cloud One Container Security, right? It consists of a number of different strategies that allow us to take a multifaceted approach to container security. On the pre-deployment side, we're looking at what we call Smart Check technology. That's what we're going to use to be able to scan images in both that build pipeline as well as in the container registry. And what you would look for and what the service would look for is vulnerabilities in the image, any malware in the image, or compliance violations with the configuration of the container image, and even any sort of secrets, keys, passwords embedded into the code there. On top of that, we've partnered with Snyk, who is basically the leader in open source threat knowledge. And what we're doing there is kind of allowing you to detect the broadest range of vulnerabilities by using Snyk's open source threat database with Trendmicro's years of threat research, right? So let's move forward and take a look at this strategy in action. Let's see. So I can't name our particular customer or the particular client that we had, but I can tell you their story, and it is pretty cool. So, or at least it's cool to me because I work in AWS and I love to watch people move from one different strategy to another and bring it to life. So this was a financial services customer of Trendmicro that was moving from EC2 instances to a containerized environment in Fargate, right? And they were at the time using Trendmicro's workload security solution, which is also found on the Cloud One platform. They were using that to protect the hosts, but as they're moving to Fargate, Fargate is an AWS managed service. You don't have access to the host anymore. You only have access to that container part of the environment. So they came to us, they said, hey, Trendmicro, what can we do in order to keep this secure while we move from securing the hosts to, or while we move from accessing and securing the hosts to going full containers? Well, we said first things first, we want to protect that foundation and scan those container images. We've leveraged smart check technology to scan in their build pipeline and whenever they have something sitting in a registry to check and see that it meets their standard. If it doesn't meet their standard, it wouldn't get deployed, right? That allowed us to enable their developers. They fixed those security issues before the images were deployed, typically in the build pipeline, the build stage. So on top of that, they were also able to leverage another piece of the Cloud One platform, which is the application security to protect the containers at runtime. So we're going like a multifaceted approach through the whole pipeline here. We're scanning at build time for the container image. We're scanning at the repository, or excuse me, the registry point in the pipeline. But now we're also able to maintain security in runtime on that container with application security, but that's not necessarily the focus for today. My main focus today was pre-deployment security, but that's not the only way we can support containerized environments. But let's just highlight a little bit more of that. So with the container security piece of the Cloud One platform, when deployment time comes around, container security is going to enforce a user-defined policy, right? So we're also able to combine smart check technology with what you call a deployment control. And this is basically, you would get set up, and this is just another strategy to add to your container deployment pipeline, is, hey, are the containers that are about to enter our environment, we're about to deploy them, do they meet our compliance needs? Do they meet the compliance standards that we have to follow whenever we're running containers? Do they meet, do they have any malware on them? Are there any violations? And if so, well, using the admission control policy that we have there, if they meet the standard, they're good to go. If they don't, that actually will get blocked from even deploying to your environment. So it's a good extra strategy to have, and that can fall within the Cloud One platform as well. On top of that, as highlighted in our customer story, leveraging Cloud One application security, which is another piece of the puzzle there, it allows the security teams to secure the containers post-deployment at runtime. So let's just circle back and recap for a second. We talked a little bit about strategy for securing container images pre-deployment, and Trendmicro suggests that if you're going to go anywhere pre-deployment and you want to put security in that process, scan your container images for sure. Scan them before they go live. It's a great way to fit security into your container development pipeline. Before they go live, that's in build time and that's in the registry, like we mentioned there. Second, offered or covered what Trendmicro is up to in this space, and that's offering a pre-deployment scanning solution and even that runtime protection for post-deployment as well. And took a look at a real-life scenario where a Trend customer was able to securely pursue their container goals thanks to this strategy. So we're going to click zoom out for a second, right? I talked a little bit about container security and maybe even a little bit of application security, but in general, this Cloud One platform, like I said, it helps people assist their cloud goals and fit security into the whole process there. So if you're going through a cloud migration, just know that security can be fit into that process there, specifically with the cloud conformity service we have here. And this is all a feature set on the same platform for those building cloud native applications and want to focus more on DevOps, how you can move fast, but also, like Mickey said, focusing on DevSecOps, how can you squeeze security in between Dev and Ops? Also, welcoming those conversations, and we can fit security in there as well. And if you have, if you have compliance standards you need to follow and know how exactly you can fit compliance standards with following best practices in the cloud while maintaining your business goals in the cloud, that all fits into that platform there as well. So I'm more than happy to open up some conversations in the future with anybody willing to discuss. And just know that this is fueled by the leading threat research in the industry. Anything that we're using to secure your workloads, your containers, so on and so forth, even your application or your serverless layers or your serverless Lambda functions, this is all supported by our ongoing threat research all across the world, and just years of industry experience as well. So if you have any questions or you want to learn more about Cloud One, this platform, you can feel free to reach out to cloud1.trendmicro.com. You'll find lots of information there. And I think my email should be made available, or my contact information should be made available on the Angelbeat website as well. So thanks so much to everybody. I know I have a couple minutes left. Maybe that's that's a good time for people to go grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and take a breather before the heavy hitters start talking here. So I appreciate your time, everyone. I thank you, Ron, for having me here today, and I will pass this back over.